relationships are possible. They're just uncommon or not as probable just because of our culture's influence, right? We have a lot of influences that are all around us, and we just need to focus on who God is. And He is our best model for relationships, right? And so that's the whole idea of this series. And Romans 12:2 says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you." Can you imagine? I want to learn God's will for me. Yes. Which is good and pleasing and perfect. And now to know that it's good, pleasing, and perfect. It's amazing. So today we're going to talk about one of the most important areas of relationships, and that is communication. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's good. How many of you have heard the saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me"? Anybody? Anybody? That's a lie. Isn't it? That is a lie. Words can hurt, especially from someone that you love and you trust, right? Words can hurt. That's a lie. Words are powerful, and they can be used for good or for bad, right? So we really have to learn and recognize and take responsibility for that fact. Our words are powerful. And so we need to learn how to use our words in a godly way. Because I think the world, spews so much bad stuff at us all the time, but we need to be representatives of God and Christ in us, right?
Amen.
So there's a lot of barriers to this communication, right? It's not always easy. It doesn't come naturally necessarily, unless you are, living within the Lord and seeking after Him. But there are lots of barriers to this good communication. And the first being withdrawal. Okay? You're upset and you're just like, let's just not talk at all. Or it's even, I'm going to teach them a lesson. How many of you know the silent treatment? Anybody? Yeah, I see a few hands. I'm not going to lie. I have employed this one a few times. Okay, it's not good. I don't do as I say, not as I do, right? So that's one. But then there's also escalation, right? Raising your voice as if they'll hear you better, right? That's a thing. But that can keep you from having good communication, is that escalation. You will hear me. Also, another barrier is belittling, right? This isn't fun. To put the other person down to make yourself feel better. I think a lot of that actually comes from deep insecurity sometimes. And so, as we're thinking through these different modes of communication, there's always a reason why you tend to go one way. So think about that. Another is false belief. You believe a lie or an assumption that you've created in your mind. Yeah, I know. I'm glad this is resonating with you guys. It's not just me. Another one, and this is one that I'm pretty bad at, is unspoken expectations. This one, you set an expectation for someone else without telling them that you've set that expectation for them, right? And then they didn't meet your expectation, and then you got mad, right? That's not fair. I'm bad at this. So for me, I'm going to tell you some stories today. I hope that's okay. But I have this bad habit of expecting things from other people because I expect them to just do them and know to do them my way, right? It's hard. So, for example, we all have different expectations or ways of living in a kitchen, okay? How many of you guys grew up in a home where dishes sat in the sink? Nope. Oh, okay. See, you guys grew up in my household, okay? We cleaned up after each other, right? And the second you were done with a dish, you washed it, or put it in the dishwasher. Like, dishes did not sit in the sink, okay? We all have different practices in the kitchen. However, I lived with 3 other girls in a home back in Virginia, and they were wonderful. We all went to the same church. We all loved Jesus, okay? But we all had different practices in the kitchen, and I gotta say, it was hard, okay? I grew up in a kitchen where we cleaned up after ourselves. Things did not sit out, but some of my roommates grew up that way. They wanted to leave all the dishes out in the sink, or this was one. One of my roommates liked to blend a lot of smoothies, and she would put all the gunk from the smoothie, like chia seeds, okay? All that stuff she put into the dishwasher without rinsing, and then it just ended up all over the dishes. Anyways, this was a point of tension in our household, was the sink and the dishwasher. And it got to the point that, for me, this probably isn't the best way to do it either, so don't do this. But I just removed myself from the situation, and instead, I opted to just clean my dishes by hand and put them away immediately, not leave them in the sink, not put them in the dishwasher, because I noticed whenever I put them in the dishwasher, I would go to unload and I'd be annoyed or frustrated because it's all still dirty. So I just removed myself from the situation. But a few of my other roommates did not feel that way. It escalated. It did not end pretty. But at the end of the day, it would have been helpful for us to communicate, to talk about it, to talk about our different expectations when we're in the kitchen or how we grew up and understand each other, right? Talk about it. It will save you so much energy and upset to just talk about it, right? Communicate. Talk about it. So anyways, that's my little illustration for today. So everything that we do communicates something, right? Everything that we do, everything that we say communicates something. So we need to be careful about how we use our words. And quite honestly, our actions too. But, that's a whole different conversation because we're going to talk about words today. So our words should be to build rather than to destroy, and to connect and bring people together rather than to separate, right? There's too much of this in our world already. We need to do a better job for our neighbors, for our children, for the next generation, to make sure that our words are building and gathering people together, not separating. We have too much of that right now. We need to bring us together, right? Because God designed us for community. He designed us to be in relationship with each other, and that we shouldn't be fighting and, having all these problems. We should be loving and encouraging and all these different things. And so today we're going to talk about how to have this good, healthy communication the way that God designed it, right? And so I'm going to talk about 7 practices that will help us become more intentional with our words, to start loving people better through our words. And so the first is praise. We need to highlight other people's qualities more often, right? Why are we so afraid to praise someone else for something that is beautiful in them, right? We were all made in the image of God, every single one of us. And therefore, we carry a piece of his nature within us. And so when you praise someone else for something beautiful in them, you are praising God, right? You are praising the piece of him that is in this other person. We should highlight that more often. We should admire that in each other. So why not praise each other more often, right? One of our team's cultural values is we are each other's biggest fans. We in this house want to encourage and celebrate each other often. Proverbs 25:11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold." But I like the Message version. It says, "The right word at the right time is like a custom-made piece of jewelry." Wow, imagine giving someone a custom-made gold and silver piece of jewelry that is uniquely theirs. It's unique. Dang, guys, stop buying jewelry and give me some affirmation. No. You know what I mean? The older I get, the more words and time really matter, right? How many of you would rather less stuff and more like affirmation and praise from each other. So think about that. Has anybody ever told you, I see something in you, or I see something like bigger than you like currently are? Like I see a future for you. I see so much potential in who you are. Has anybody spoken that over you? Oh my goodness. So a couple stories of this for me. At my last job, I had to give a presentation to a group of people, and this group of people was not my boss. It wasn't my boss's boss. It was my boss's boss's bosses. Okay? So anyways, if that makes you feel like I had a lot of anxiety, okay? A lot of nervousness. I was young. I didn't feel like I had it all together, which I typically like to feel like I have it all together, you know? But I had to share everything that I had accomplished the previous year and my plans for the next year, okay? So this is almost like okay, this is what I've done, approve it, I hope you like it, I hope it is, good and pleasing and all those things. And so I go into this, I'm so nervous, and I'm all shaky, and my voice is loud. Okay, here's that thing again, maybe if I'm loud, it'll communicate that I'm confident and have all of it together. But I was so nervous. And actually, Dave, out of the corner of my eye, I see him, and he looks stressed. He's what is going on? And so I'm thinking in my mind, I'm okay, what am I doing wrong? What's happening? But then turns out, after the fact, I learned something about myself that day. If I'm really nervous and talking to a group of people, everybody don't look, I break out in hives. It's a thing. And so he, during this meeting, is watching me and watching the hives just creep up my neck. And I was just oh my gosh. So anyways, I'm glad I didn't know that during, but now I know it. And so now I wear stuff around my neck. Thank goodness for turtlenecks. So anyways, I was super nervous. But then after the fact, after the presentation and everything, one of the guys in the room was I see something special in you. Whew. I was taken aback. I never would have thought that. I was so worried. I was so nervous and anxious. But then he spoke those words over me, and I was whoa. God, what do you have up your sleeve? What is next for me? What is my future? It honestly, it lit a fire in me that was oh, there's something more for me. His words, just a few words did that. Another time somebody spoke something like this over me was Dave and Amanda. A lot of you guys know me as a creative or an artist. I like photography, interior design, lots of pretty things in my life. I love that. But honestly, that hasn't been my reality until the last couple of years. I never thought of myself as a creative. I honestly was kind of afraid of that title, honestly, because I admired it so much in other people, but never thought I could do it myself or that I was a creative person until they spoke it over me. They were no, you have that in you. You just haven't used it. You haven't exercised it. You need to do this more often. Build it, And so now the things that I love have completely changed. I do find myself hesitantly telling myself I'm a creative, and it's awesome. But I never would have branched out and done that had it not been just spoken over me. Just a few words, make a huge difference. So anyways, that's the first one, and it's praise. The second is thanksgiving. We need to be generous with our thankfulness to others. Thanksgiving. Anything done for you should be met with thankfulness, a thank you. 1 Timothy 2:1 says, "First of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people." All people. That's the grumpy cashier at the store. You don't know what's going on in their life, but saying thanks might change their day. At the restaurant with a hostess and servers, thank them for what they do. Be thankful for what they do, and your words will go a long way in their life and in their day. When I was living in Virginia, I met my parents for Sunday brunch every afternoon after church. We had like a standing reservation. It wasn't even like this nice restaurant, but it was kind of in the middle of nowhere because we would meet up halfway. And so we were there every day or every Sunday. And I got there early. And I noticed that the hostess was like overwhelmed. There was a lot of people there. The bussers were trying to clean off the tables, and I could just tell she was stressed. And so I went over to her, and I was just like, kind of like trying to lighten the mood a little. I was just like, hey, I just want you to know you're doing a great job. Like, I recognize and I see a lot of people in here, but you are handling yourself well. Thank you. And immediately she kind of laughed and was just like, and just went about her day. But I could visibly see the stress in her shoulders deflate. And she just, those few words, it makes a huge difference. So please, thank your people. The next is affection. We should openly express affection to each other. Tell your family, your friends, your spouse what they mean to you. You know, they may not know it, or maybe it's been so long they forgot, right? Be sure to give each other affection. Say what they mean to you. It means a lot. And for some of you, it may be hard to do that out of fear of being hurt. Maybe you've been hurt before and you're afraid to give that affection to someone, right? But I don't think that was God's design to withhold love. He wants us to love each other. Jeremiah 3:3 says, I have loved you, my people, with an everlasting love. With unfailing love, I have drawn you to myself. So even God chose to love us with an everlasting, unfailing love. And I bet there are a lot of things that I have done, that we have done to hurt God's heart, but he loves us anyways. He wants our best for us anyways. He wants to bless us. He wants to provide for us. He wants to give us his spirit anyways, and he will keep loving us forever, always, anyways. And he will continue doing that for the rest of our lives because his love doesn't depend on us. It's his love, which is unfailing and everlasting, and it doesn't depend on us. The fourth is encouragement. We need to encourage those who are discouraged. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. You know, life is really hard, and we all go through valleys, and we need each other to lean on for encouragement. It's like our own reinforcement of people, an army behind us to give us encouragement when we don't see a way through. A few years ago, I went through a brief season of depression, and I spent many nights just crying myself to sleep. I had started to believe lies that the world was telling me and the enemy was telling me, thinking that I don't have a purpose or that I'm not good enough or that my relationships would be better off without me, right? And I started believing all these things, and I got into just this deep hole. And I just wanted to curl up and stay there. But then I had a friend, very sweet friend, who told me that she had been through a similar experience. And she encouraged me and literally built me back up, right? She gave me tools to help myself process differently, right? Because sometimes those lies and beliefs become a filter that you just put everything through, and you need to take that filter out and put in truth, okay? So, but she encouraged me in a really dark season, and just with her words literally pulled me out of the hole. So be sure to encourage each other. You never know what the person next to you is going through. They might be in a hole that you need to pick them up out of. The fifth one is truth in love. It's okay to say what's wrong, right? We're all going to have conflict. We're all going to have disagreements because we were all made differently. We're all made in the image of God, but he gave us all different qualities. We all believe a little differently, but at the end of the day, Christ unifies us, right? And we do have truth that we can hold to. And so it's okay to say what's wrong, but it's not okay to hurt people while sharing the truth, right? And so Ephesians 4:15 says, we will speak the truth in love.
growing in every way more and more like Christ. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A gentle response diffuses anger, but a sharp tongue kindles a temper fire." So when you go into a conflict or you have a disagreement about something, even something small, if you handle it with Christ's, view, or, you approach the situation with, okay, I'm about to talk about something that I believe differently about maybe, but at the end of the day, I'm talking to another child of God. I'm talking to a brother or sister. So how would Christ handle this situation? I think he would handle it with love, grace, mercy, patience, all to make the relationship stronger. That would be his end goal. Because at the end of the day, he wants to unify us in love for each other. He wants us to be for each other. You think about your kids, if you have kids. Would you want your kids fighting all the time? Or would you want them to love each other and work through it, build each other up, and be stronger, right? Truth without grace is mean. Grace without truth is meaningless. Truth and grace is where it's at. And I was thinking about this morning. I didn't put this in my notes, but another piece of this is also listening, right? How much of communication is like listening to the other person, right? That's a good one. That could be a whole thing. Anyways, the sixth one is prayer. We should do nothing apart from prayer. Nothing. Psalm 16, 8-9 says, "I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest secure." Nothing you should do should be apart from prayer. Pray for these relationships. Pray for your communication, your conversations, your words, your heart and mind going into a conversation. Be in prayer. Keep God present and alive in your relationships. Bring him into it. He wants to be part of it. And the seventh and the last one is kindness. This one's a little unique, right? Kindness is almost like a way that you carry yourself, right? It's providing a safe place for healthy communication. It's providing an environment for communication. So where do we hear about kindness in Scripture? Galatians 5:22-23. "The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." Kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. And Romans 8:9 says, "You, however, are not in flesh, but in the Spirit. In fact, the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him." So really, kindness is evidence of the Holy Spirit in you, right? So the more you spend time with him, this should come naturally because you're chasing after his character. And that Spirit will give you a heart of kindness, right? So how much time do we spend with God daily? How much time are we chasing after God's character to have this kindness to give back? Kindness should come naturally. And it's not really a suggestion. Like we are called to be kind. And so a final thought for you. All of these things are great for relationships. All of these things. Your spouse, your children, family, friends, coworkers, anybody that you have a relationship with. This is great for all relationships. But also don't forget to practice these same things with the one who loved you first. All of these communication practices, how are you doing them with God? Some of us need to work on our communication with God. Am I right? Do you have communication barriers up between you and God? How is your praise to God today? Are you giving God thanks every day? Have you shown God affection? Have you been an encouragement? Have you sought God's truth? Have you prayed with God? Have you shown God kindness? Some of these things you might be like, well, how do I encourage God? How do I show God kindness? Right? He is the maker of all things. How could I possibly? Matthew 25:40 says, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So all of these things, how do I encourage God? How can I show him kindness? You do it for your brother. Communicate well in all your relationships with all people, because what you do for the least of these, you do for God. And if for no other reason than that, love others. Form healthy relationships built on good communication. Listen, because he desires for you these beautiful relationships that you could have. And if you're afraid of being hurt, trust. Trust in God, because he has called us all to love each other and to care for one another. So that's what I have for you today. Let's pray as the band comes up. God, thank you so much just for who you are, and that you love us anyways, and that you have shown us how to have good relationships, and that you desire these good relationships for us, that you created us with relationships in mind, that you didn't want us to stand alone, that you wanted an army around us all the time. God, thank you that we can lean on you for truth, that you give us your spirit. God, you are so good. You are good to us, God. Thank you that you are patient as we learn and discover all these things. I thank you for every person in this room. I pray that we all just got a little closer to you today, that we all received a little bit more of you today, that we leave being a little bit more like you today, that we leave with kindness and encouragement and love just with our brothers and sisters next to us as an army to go out into this world and show the world kindness and love, the things that you desired for it. God, thank you for sending Jesus for us, God. You are so good, even when we don't deserve it. God, thank you. In your name I pray. Amen.